Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. Too many invisible men. Too many invisible men. Now y'all notice my tone is a little bit more serious than what I usually start off because, I'll usually start off, I'll mention the title, have a little laugh and then get into it. Have some fun with it, but this is a very serious matter. And before I get into it too much, I want to shout out C Boogie because he had mentioned this in a live stream he had the other week, and he had mentioned invisible men. Invisible men. And the thing is, there's just too many invisible men. And what is an invisible man? It's very simple. Women don't see that man. He doesn't stand out. It's like women can go into a room of 100 men and quite literally only see 10. Quite literally only see 10. If they call, afterwards they'll talk to the girlfriends. They say, yeah, there was only 10 men there. A reality is this: when I talk about select and non-select, women literally don't see a non-select man. They literally don't see him. The more non-select he is, the more they don't see him. They don't notice him. He doesn't register on their radar. Only way that they might even notice him is he got to be directly in front of them, blocking their path. If they walking through any place, he's invisible. He's invisible. And the thing is, that means if a man is invisible to a woman, that doesn't mean he's like physically unattractive, physically ugly. Ironically, if a man is physically ugly, they might actually notice him, believe it or not. But nothing about him stands out in the mind of a woman. Nothing about him. A lot of people talk about height. Well, let's be real. If somebody is like 6'4", something, they stand out. All right, so obviously this guy, he could have an average height. He could be the average height or something, but he doesn't stand out. And that's just one way. Nothing about his looks or his physique, his face or his body stands out. Now, like I said, this don't necessarily mean he's ugly. Ironically, if somebody's just totally busted, that person would actually notice. They ain't gonna be turned on by him necessarily, but they would actually notice. No, this person is probably average, plain. The equivalent of an invisible man to us is a plain Jane. But the nature of man, we look at all the women. So we at least going to notice it. But a guy who's like a plain Jane to a woman, he doesn't stand out, period. It's their nature to focus on men who stand out, and it's not just his physicality, but two other things. One, how he dresses. Drip is important. A man's drip is important. He doesn't stand out. There's nothing about him that stands out. Like even getting tattoos. A lot of guys got tattoos because to draw the attention of a woman, to have something about him. That's why clothing is important. At least you get that attention. Like if you don't have like those genetic great looks, that model look or something. One of the things that was developed in the streets was to at least have some clothing that would draw a woman's attention. They literally will look at a man's shoes. They will look at a man's shoes and everything. They will look at his watch. They will look at his shirt. They will look at his haircut. That draws a woman's attention. And see, that's a game right there. Like I said, if you're not that fashion model, or as much as I talk body game, a lot of guys, even if they go to the gym, are not going to have that body that stands out. But if they are dressed a certain way, have a certain style of clothes, that she can at least see that. She can see that. She'll draw her attention. Oh, he got some nice shoes. Oh, he got a nice haircut. Oh, he got a nice watch. At least stand out in her view. He's not invisible. But then you got some guys, okay, they don't have the physicality. They also don't have the appearance. And then they don't have the personality that is reflected in how they move. They kind of like a shrinking violet. They quiet. And see, there's two types of quiet, just to be clear. You get some guys, they can be real quiet but still draw the women. The reason they do, they got the physicality, they got the drip, you know, they got the demeanor, and so that guy's mysterious. But then you got other guys, they don't stand out because they don't have that physicality. They don't have those clothing or that style. They don't move in such a way that will draw attention. They're invisible. And that's a major issue. That's a major issue. Like if a guy, you know, people talk about that thing about choosing signals and, you know, cold approach and all of that stuff. In both those cases, a man needs to be visible. A man needs to be truly visible because women, they're looking as well. Now, choosing signals, how they gonna give you choosing signals if they don't see you? You're invisible to them. Or even when you approach, it's almost like you popped out of the air. You gotta be right in front of her. And she's like, who are you? What's going on? And even then, depending on what the woman does, she still might not see you. She could be walking along and, you know, you walk up to, or your invisible man walk up to and say something, and she might be like, hey, and keep going, you know? And it's the equivalent of a fly buzzing around her head. She, you know, she don't think about it. She just does this and keep walking. That's the thing. And that's the real issue with many men. They don't stand out. See, I don't care. Look, you get some guys thinking, oh, well, if I just get that magic word, I can get her. But you got to stand out. You know, women still got their eyes are open. Their eyes are open. They still seeing everything. And, you know, as I said earlier this week, you know, body language is a part of the mouthpiece. When women looking at you talk, when they listening to you talk, they looking at you at the same time and they reading your nonverbal language. An invisible man, he doesn't give off that nonverbal language. Basically, he just walks through. They don't see him. And it's really the saddest thing. It's really the saddest thing. Because their focus will be on the visible men, the men who stand out. A friend of mine, a lady friend of mine, she'll call it being shiny. Being shiny. You know, it's like a light. Indeed, it's such a level to the shiny men that the women, they can actually feel his presence in the room. But with the invisible man, they can't even feel it. There's nothing about him. It's like blah. He's bland. He's bland. And that's a general thing. When a man is bland, that's the worst thing a man can be. That's the worst thing. And here's the thing. He can be that way even if he has a regular job. You know, even if he's a good human being. He's just bland. He don't stand out to them. He's like blah. You know, it's like the Thanksgiving turkey without any seasoning on it, you know, or any type of food without the seasoning. You know, you don't have that extra. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good to them. And there's too many out there. And a lot of men who are invisible, they can feel a certain way. You can see it. They get angry. Sometimes they get angry to the point that they act out just to be invisible. Indeed, that's why some men get mad if they get blocked on channels. That's the real reason they get mad, because then they become even more invisible. That's why it messes with them. See, I can tell, like, y'all know me, if I don't put up with any crap, you know, I'm quick to block. But then I notice they'll be on some other channel complaining. They just complain because they're invisible otherwise. In fact, that's the big thing with trolls. They want to be seen. They want to be responded to because they're invisible. That's the thing. That's the thing. Nobody sees them. Women don't see them. Other people don't really see them. That's how deep it is. It's like I said, it's nothing about the guy. It's nothing about the guy. It's usually, they might have a good personality and stuff. They might, if you get to know them, if you're in a position to get to know them, but it doesn't stand out. They just blah, they just plain. It's nothing spectacular. There's no spark. There's no spice to them. And you know, and then I know some guys will say, well, they shouldn't want that. Why? Why? Why should a woman want that guy like that? You know, men don't want an ugly woman. Men don't want a woman who's just blah. You know, that woman gotta have some spice to her. She gotta have something. She gotta fix something. Yeah, there's some men who might still mess with that type anyway if that's what's presented, but what do men want? And women, they're the exact same way. In fact, they probably worse. They worse about that one. See, a man will still give a plain Jane a chance. Women don't. And they'll just say, oh, he is nothing to him. He don't stand out. He don't have a good vibe. He don't got no swag. That's how it is. And it's too many invisible men. And it's something that really need to be looked at, because if a man gets to the point he's invisible, that really messes with him. Imagine, seriously, it goes beyond game. It goes beyond game. It's life, because if that man's invisible to women, he can be invisible to other people. He might be lucky to get a job or something, but then he's invisible on the job. He's just there. You know, and when you just there on jobs and stuff, that that can hit you on different ways. You know, when it's time for a raise, you didn't stand out in the supervisor's mind. You just there. You know, nobody's talking about you. Nobody's saying this or that about you. You just there. And like I said, that's why you get some guys, invisible men. Those are the ones who usually go crazy after a while. Those are the ones who usually go crazy because they want to be seen. And I understand that. And let's be clear on it. If you're an invisible man, don't get mad. Don't get mad at the women if they don't see you, or if people in general don't see you. It's up to you to make yourself visible. Now, I've talked about body game. You can do something, and then you could develop not only your your clothing style. Don't have to be spectacular, but you can still have a nice watch, nice shoes. You can get a good haircut, and then your personality. You just work on your personality. Indeed, if a man works on his personality, everything else follows. Ain't nothing wrong with saying somebody say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Boom. Even if you're quiet, even if you're introvert, you can still have a certain vibe to you that makes you seen. And it's tough. Look, I'm gonna be real with you. It's tough. And I would say this for any men who they realize that they're invisible. Don't be afraid. If you need to really look at why you're invisible. And even though I gave something very brief on some stuff, you might have some deeper psychological issues. If you have to, therapy, mental health, deal with the mental health aspect. You might have some mental health issues that you might need to deal with. There's no shame in dealing with them. We all, Rom included, have demons, have demons that we fight. And that's an everyday fight. If you're on this planet, you fighting something. Every single person watching this. So if you realize you're invisible, if you need to talk to some people, if you need to get advice at how you can become visible, do it. If you have to go to a mental health professional to deal with some issues, do it. Don't hesitate. This is your life, okay? Go beyond this. Yes, I can give advice and everything. I'm not a mental health professional. Go to a mental health professional if you need to. Because the thing about being invisible, at some point you're going to want to be visible. And that's when you get people who do stuff, they act out. They do some stuff, they just want to be seen. And I understand that. It causes a lot of destruction, but instead of us just saying, oh, they shouldn't have did that, or they were so bad, let's start dealing with the issues that made them invisible to begin with. And that starts within each and every one of you, all right? So if you're a man and you realize, hey, you're an invisible man, well, work to become visible. Now, I gave some basics. Those are basics, but then if you need to go deeper, talk to someone, talk to a spiritual leader, talk to a mental health professional, deal with any mental traumas that you've had in your life. Because you have it within you to be fully seen, to be fully visible, okay? So that's all I have for today. I'll get back with y'all tomorrow. Peace and blessings.